Good afternoon, and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. If you would like to testify, you must fill out a witness slip with one of the sergeant at arms in the back of the room, even if you signed up already online. You may submit testimony@council.nyc.gov. At this time, please silence all electronic devices and no one may approach the dais at any time. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a lovely day to be inside. I think I'm funny. Okay. Well, welcome to the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. My name is Justin Sanchez. I am council member and chair of this committee. I want to thank all of my members of the committee and the representatives from the admin for joining us today. I'd also like to thank all the members of the public who are here to testify. Again, to minimize disruption, please place your electronic devices on vibrate or silent. I would like to start by acknowledging the council members who are here with us today in no particular order. We have Councilmember Maloney, we have Councilmember Ung, we have Councilmember Schwang, we have Councilmember Hankerson, and for his first committee meeting ever, we have Councilmember Wilson. You can clap for that, thank you. We have Councilmember Brewer, Councilmember Hanif, and Councilmember Thomas Henry. When I ran for city council, I ran on 4 simple words: clean the damn streets. And so what are we here today to talk about? Street cleanliness. Today we're going to be learning all about the Department of Sanitation's current work to keep the city's streets and sidewalks clean. Street cleanliness affects all of us: our quality of life, urban aesthetics, public safety, physical and mental health, stormwater management, economic development, tourism, and community dignity. Where cleanliness lacks, there are higher risks for disease transmission and exacerbated tension. New Yorkers deserve sound physical and mental health and access to a wide range of opportunities available in this city. One thing necessary to realize this promise is always to ensure a high level of cleanliness. In addition to oversight, we will be hearing 8 bills today, 2 of which I am sponsoring. First, intro number 883 would require the DSNY commissioner to establish an Office of Sidewalk and Roadway Cafe Sanitation. The office would receive 311 service requests relating to sidewalk and roadway cafe cleanliness, such as debris, trash, vermin, foul odors, and food scraps. Using this information, the office would establish lists of sidewalk and roadway cafes that receive a certain number of DSNY violations or 311 service requests and share such lists with the Department of Transportation. The office would also be required to report to the council and the mayor and to conduct outreach to sidewalk and roadway cafe operators about cleanliness standards. The other bill I'm sponsoring is intro number 906, which would establish procedures for DSNY once it receives at least 3 complaints of dog waste on the same block within 7 days. DSNY would be required to either remove the waste on that block or to inform property owners of their obligation to remove the waste and issue violations to those who do not remove the waste. Next up is intro 857, sponsored by Councilmember Julie Menon, our speaker, which would require DSNY to install and regularly fill dog waste bag dispensers on or next to all public litter baskets on city streets. This bill would also require DSNY to work with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to conduct a public awareness campaign to educate the public on the negative public health consequences associated with dog waste. Next up, we have intro number 31, sponsored by Council Majority Leader Sean Abreu, which would expand the categories of businesses that can be designated by DSNY to subject to requirements regarding separation and disposal of organic waste, and would require DSNY to designate additional covered establishments. Any covered establishment so designated would be required to comply with requirements regarding separation and disposal of organic waste when the commercial waste zone in the establishment is located goes into effect, or within 6 months of DSNY's designation if the commercial waste zone is already in effect. I will speak briefly on intro 31 on behalf of our Majority Leader Abreu. This bill will help ensure more establishments participate in our organics recycling system and practice responsible waste management. The bill also builds on the growing success of our city's organics waste system, helping reduce strain on landfills and supporting our environmental goals. Households are now required to separate their organic waste, and we believe businesses should be held to the same standard. It is important to note that Intro 31 will be good for businesses' bottom lines by reducing waste disposal costs. Under the city's current commercial waste zone rules, carters that collect commercial waste are required to charge less for organic waste collection than general refuse collection. By requiring new types of establishments to separate out their organic waste, Intro 31 will help save these businesses money as more of their waste is collected at the mandated lower rates for organic waste collection. Ultimately, it will cost businesses less to do the right thing for our environment. Intro 31 will help foster a more sustainable and environmental friendly commercial waste system in our city. Thank you. Thank you, Majority Leader Brayu. Moving on, we have Intro 872, sponsored by Councilmember Shahana Hanif. This bill will require the Commissioner of Health and Mental Hygiene, in consultation with DSNY Commissioner, to develop and conduct a public education and outreach campaign in all designated citywide languages to inform the public about dog waste removal and the dangers of failing to remove dog waste. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing my voice, so I will gladly pass it over to Councilmember Hanif to discuss her bill.
Thank you, Chair Sanchez. Good afternoon. I'm Councilmember Shahana Hanif. Thank you, Chair Sanchez, for convening today's hearing and for including my bill, Intro 872, creating a citywide dog waste education campaign. And thank you to Speaker Menon for her dogged commitment to this issue. New York City has a dog poop problem. We've all seen it, and unfortunately, many of us have stepped in it. But this is not just a quality of life issue. Dog waste is a serious public health and environmental hazard. According to the EPA and CDC, pet waste can pollute waterways and spread harmful bacteria and parasites, including E. coli, salmonella, and roundworm. Yet many New Yorkers simply do not know the risks. That's where Intro 872 comes in. This bill would require a multilingual public education campaign so dog owners understand the health impacts of failing to scoop the poop and the shared responsibility we all have to keep our city clean and safe. Every New Yorker deserves sidewalks that are safe, accessible, and poop-free. I urge my colleagues to support Intro 872 because New Yorkers are tired of this crap. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Hanif. We're also tired of this crap. Next is Intro number 736, sponsored by Councilmember James Gennaro. This bill would codify a requirement that a sponsor of any street activity permitted by the Street Activity Permit Office perform solid waste disposal and recycling practices. The sponsor would also have to ensure that food vendors at street activities, not including food service establishments, provide beverage stirrers, beverage splash sticks, straws, eating utensils, eating containers, condiment packets, and napkins only upon request. The items would have to be compostable except for straws and condiment packets. As applicable, sponsors would be required to maintain a sufficient supply of single-use plastic beverage straws that are not compostable and display signs indicating straw availability. SAPO and DSNY would have enforcement power. Sponsors would have to submit compliance plans to SAPO, and SAPO would have to inform sponsors of their responsibilities and include on their websites information about permissible items. I would be passing the floor over to Councilmember James Gennaro. However, we are sending our thoughts and prayers as he is dealing with a horrific shooting that just happened in his district, so he had to turn around. As such, he will not be joining us today, but we will continue to discuss his bill. Moving on, Intro number 899, sponsored by Councilmember Ty Hankerson, is another bill on today's agenda. Pardon me. This bill would require the applicants for permits related to the construction of new buildings and the alteration or demolition of existing buildings to submit to the Department of Buildings a construction waste management and disposal plan. DOB, in conjunction with the DSNY and Department of Environmental Protection, would be required to verify the permit holder's compliance with their plan and could issue a civil penalty of $1,000 for failing to comply with the plan. DOB and the Department of Consumer Worker Protection also could suspend or revoke contractor licenses for repeated failure to adhere to the bills. I now pass the floor to Councilmember Hankerson to discuss his bill.
Thank you, Chair. Illegal dumping is a quality of life issue across New York City. Construction debris left near homes, parks, green spaces, neighborhood corridors, waterways, and beaches create eyesores and brings down the value of the surrounding area and harms the environment. Construction waste should not leave a job site without a clear plan for where it will go or who will handle it. Before a permit is granted, contractors should be able to show that debris will be taken to an appropriate disposal location by a licensed or properly authorized hauler, disposer, or disposal company. When disposal records are not required, contractors can cut corners, use unauthorized or unreliable disposers, avoid proper disposal costs, and leave communities to deal with a mess. A permit should not be approved on trust alone, especially when construction debris can end up in communities. This legislation requires applicants for certain DOB permits to submit a construction waste disposal plan before the permit is actually granted. It also requires proof that the waste was taken to a lawful disposal site before the permit can be closed. That proof may include receipts, transfer station records, disposal facility records, hauling records, or other documents showing where the material went and who handled it. Requiring disposal planning before permit approval and verification before permit closeout will help prevent illegal dumping, protect public spaces, and hold contractors accountable. Thank you, Chair Sanchez, for allowing me to share about this bill.
Thank you, Councilmember Hankerson. I look forward to the dialogue today, and I would like to thank everyone on my team, especially our Council Committee, Morgan, for their work on this legislation and oversight, and to the entire Sanitation and Solid Waste Management team. We will start by hearing testimony from the DSNY, followed by some questions to the agency. You know, I don't see it, but I accidentally skipped over Councilmember Brewer. So before I give closing remarks and get to our lovely admin, I would like to turn the mic over to Councilmember Brewer to speak on her bill.
Thank you very much. It is Intro 92, and it has to do with restoring notification stickers to enforce alternate side parking regulations. I think we know that street cleaning only works when cars move. When they do not, sweepers cannot properly clean the curb lane, the litter, the debris, the dog waste, and grime builds up. That's why I introduced Intro 92, which would restore the Department of Sanitation's ability to place warning stickers on vehicles that fail to move for alternate side parking. The Sanitation Department used these stickers in the past. I remember I voted for it 100 years ago. And they were a practical tool to improve compliance and help keep streets clean. In 2011, I voted with my colleagues to limit, I must admit, the use of these stickers in what became Local Law 20 of 2012. Now, 14 years later, many of us have noticed a significant change in alternate side compliance as well as the overall cleanliness of our streets. I don't know if it was the pandemic, but people do not move their cars. Constituents voiced frustration upon seeing street sweepers weaving around parked cars, some with drivers in them. I don't know what they think they're doing, except they're holding on to the parking place in case nobody gives them a ticket, so they just stay there. Thank you to the Department of Sanitation for their support of this legislation. New York City's strongest, thank you for your efforts day in and day out and evenings to keep our streets and sidewalks clean. I want to thank Chair Sanchez for including this bill in the hearing and for caring about street cleanliness. I do think it's time to restore this practical tool that has proven effective as keeping our streets clean. And if in Albany there is a camera on a street sweeper, I think you still need to have an ability to do a sticker for those intransient individuals who refuse to move. And they would get the sticker and not be able to get the adhesive to come off their car, so they would have that for the rest of their natural lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer, and I have to agree, let's put a sticker on it. And if you get that reference, thank you. If you didn't, I'm sorry for you. So now, finally, we will start by hearing testimony from DSNY, followed by some questions to the agency, and then we will hear testimony from members of the public. I will now turn it over to our committee counsel to administer the oath.
Good afternoon, members from the administration. Will you please raise your right hands? Thank you. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the council members and to respond honestly to council member questions today?
I do.
Thank you. You may begin.
Great. Good afternoon, Chair Sanchez and members of the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management. I am Gregory Anderson, Commissioner of the New York City Department of Sanitation, and I am joined today by Chief of Department Anthony Penalino and Rebecca Kriegman, Assistant Commissioner for Policy and Planning. Every New Yorker deserves not just a clean street, but a clean city. For decades, public space cleaning programs have been a bureaucratic patchwork with confusing responsibilities that facilitated finger pointing and inaction. As with so many other issues, the Mamdani administration is rejecting this status quo. And as part of the new era for New York City, the Department of Sanitation is taking an expansive view of what it means to keep the city clean. It isn't just about emptying litter baskets more frequently, or clearing dump outs more quickly, or enforcing our cleanliness laws more effectively. It's about understanding that every part of this city is impacted by sanitation issues and services, from street sweeping to enforcement to public education. In the coming years, the members of this council and the people of your districts will see that change, will feel it, will smell it, as we bring equitable cleaning resources to every part of the 5 boroughs. We need New Yorkers to be our partners in this effort, to keep their properties clean, to pick up after their dogs, to throw their trash in the litter basket, and largely they do. However, I have to address one area where many New Yorkers often do not do their part, and where our hands are very much tied. The street sweeper, or mechanical broom, is among our most effective tools for keeping streets clean, picking up as much as 1,500 pounds of trash, leaves, and street debris in a single shift. And they're out across our city 6 days a week. Street cleaning regulations, known as alternate side parking, or ASP, exists to give our street sweepers access to the curb. For 90 minutes, once or twice a week, regulations require drivers to move their cars to allow our street sweepers to do their jobs. If you take a look around neighborhoods across the city, you will see, unfortunately, far too many New Yorkers who own cars have become accustomed to disregarding these basic rules and leaving their personal property occupying valuable public space, creating dirty streets in the process. Simply put, the current system is broken. The risk of enforcement, done manually by our sanitation supervisors and by traffic enforcement agents, is minimal. The price of noncompliance, combined with the low risk of getting caught, is a cheaper option for drivers than the opportunity cost of moving their car or the cost of paying for off-street parking. Meanwhile, good neighbors who sweep their properties and who obey ASP regulations are left angry, frustrated, even irate when fellow drivers leave their cars on the street with no concern for the cleanliness of the neighborhood. During a survey last month of 35 street cleaning routes, we found that, on average, nearly 500 vehicles remain parked illegally on each route. That means that on over 1,200 routes each week, nearly 500,000 cars violate street cleaning regulations and prevent us from cleaning more than 3,000 miles of New York City streets. But don't just take my word for it. Watch this video. Let's see if we can pull it up. Do we have the video?
Thank you, Commissioner. I've just let the administrator of the video know that we are ready to play. Just 1 minute.
So that video showed a mechanical broom struggling to maneuver around parked cars on its assigned route, leaving behind dirty streets in the process. To clean your neighborhoods and change the culture of filth on our streets, that must change. Last week, I was in Albany asking legislators to give New York City the authority to enforce against this practice via automated enforcement. A street sweeper camera enforcement program has passed the state Senate for multiple years in a row, but has stalled in the Assembly. Our message to Albany is clear. Let us clean. Just this morning, a mechanical broom operator in Manhattan District 10 was working her route when she encountered a parked car blocking the broom at 119th Street and Morningside Avenue. Without the benefit of automated enforcement to issue a ticket, and without a supervisor in the immediate vicinity to write a ticket manually, she did what many broom operators do every day. She honked the horn to encourage the driver to move so she could do her job and clean the street. Instead of moving, the occupant of the vehicle reached in the back seat of the car and grabbed a firearm. He waved it in the air, and the sanitation worker, fearing for her life, quickly left the scene before calling for supervision and NYPD assistance. That would not have happened if we had automated enforcement. So I say again, let us clean safely. Authorizing automated enforcement by DSNY street sweepers will lead to more reliable and consistent enforcement without the need for conflict or manual intervention. This will encourage compliance and improve DSNY's access to the curb, ensuring cleaner neighborhoods. And that is not to say that we want to issue more summonses. I would be thrilled if we could go through a day in this city without having to issue a single ASP ticket at all. With this new program, New Yorkers will only receive a summons if they actually block the sweeper, preventing it from cleaning our streets. And as we get better compliance and cleaner streets in the process, we will be able to reevaluate the current street cleaning regulations, potentially reducing the frequency and duration of ASP regulations. This will lead to cleaner streets and a more convenient way of life for New Yorkers who do their part, benefiting all New Yorkers, from Jamaica to Jackson Heights and from Eastchester to the East Village. I ask every city council member who wants cleaner streets to put their strong vocal support behind this bill. Call your colleagues in the state legislature. Tell them to let us clean. We thank you for your advocacy and support of this important state legislation. This hearing also includes several pieces of city legislation that touch on a number of topics related to street cleanliness. Several bills address the fact that far too many New Yorkers with dogs simply fail to pick up after them. This practice is disgusting. It is despicable. It is deplorable. And to New Yorkers, I say this: if you fail to pick up after your dog, you are showing the utmost disrespect for your neighbors and for the community you live in. Speaker Menin's bill, Intro 857, would require DSNY to install and fill dog waste bag dispensers, that is quite a mouthful, Chair Sanchez, on all public litter baskets. I am proud to share that our pilot of these dispensers is going quite well, with dispensers now on baskets in parts of the Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn. In all cases, though, DSNY has a maintenance partner, an elected official, a business improvement district, or a community group that is committed to refilling bags when they run out. DSNY simply does not have the resources at this time to routinely restock bags at any kind of scale. And what could be worse than walking your dog, expecting to find bags available, and finding an empty dispenser, forcing you to leave the poop on the ground? Intro 872, sponsored by Councilmember Hanif, would require Sanitation and Department of Health to implement a public education campaign around dog waste. We are eager to work with the council to increase awareness about this issue, and again, do not have resources for a broad marketing and outreach campaign at this time. On Chair Sanchez's bill, Intro 906, regarding the removal of dog waste, DSNY shares the council's frustration with repeat offenders who make certain blocks entirely unwalkable. We do have concerns about the practical application of this requirement if 311 complaint volumes were to increase substantially, but we look forward to discussing those further. Intro 883, also sponsored by Chair Sanchez, would establish an Office of Sidewalk and Roadway Cafe Sanitation at the Department of Sanitation. We agree with the council on the importance of upholding cleanliness standards for outdoor dining setups. I'm happy to say that sanitation today has a collaborative relationship with the Department of Transportation on this topic, and the outdoor dining program has clear requirements regarding cleanliness and sanitation, which I will say the COVID era temporary program did not. As the council considers expanding this program year-round, we are working with DOT and the mayor's office to identify additional requirements and potentially regulations that will ensure that sidewalk and roadway dining setups do not create cleanliness conditions in our commercial corridors. On Councilmember Hankerson's bill, Intro 899, regarding construction and demolition waste, we strongly feel that this industry needs more and better regulation. Shady contractors often dump waste illegally in our parks and our neighborhoods, and those who do should be severely punished. However, this is a very complicated issue, and we want to better understand the implications that new requirements will have for all construction projects, including for badly needed affordable housing. We see this bill as the beginning of a very robust discussion around this important topic, and look forward to working with the council, our partner agencies, and the contractor community to develop appropriate regulations. Councilmember Gennaro's bill, Intro 736, builds on the Skip the Stuff program that the council passed several years ago. We support efforts to reduce unnecessary waste whenever and wherever possible, and we're happy to support this bill. The last two bills have DSNY's very, very strong support. Intro 31, sponsored by Councilmember Abreu, and Intro 92, sponsored by Councilmember Brewer. Intro 31 would authorize DSNY to expand the requirement to separate compostable material to all businesses that produce food waste, fighting rats, and keeping food waste out of landfills. This bill is a critical step in reducing the amount of food waste that we dispose of. It will save businesses money, as the Commercial Waste Zones program requires carters to provide organics collection at a reduced rate compared to trash collection. We also want to make sure that the bill prioritizes the overall reduction of food waste and the donation of edible food to food pantries and those in need. Intro 92 undoes a grave mistake made by a prior city council in prohibiting the use of stickers to deter drivers from violating ASP rules. We welcome any tool that will help us ensure our sweepers can effectively clean the city's streets. This bill is a great local counterpart to the state legislation I discussed earlier, which remains our main focus and priority. So thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I am now happy to answer any questions you have about specific cleanliness programs or needs in your district. Together, we really can have a cleaner city. We just need to have the will to get it done.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I do want to be mindful of my colleagues, so I'm going to go and make sure that they can ask questions about their bills. And I really appreciate you going into detail about how the department currently feels about many of the bills, especially with the dog waste bills. I just want to make sure that we are understanding that more families are having dogs now than they are babies a lot of the time. So we need to make sure that our street sanitation is transforming itself in a way that is being responsive to our new families of today and in the future, which seems to be even more dogs. And so we should be leading and finding ways to address the resource concerns to make sure that we're modernizing the department in a way that addresses the fact that our four-legged friends are now a bigger part of our city than ever before. Having said that, I absolutely love the street ballet video, and I think there was no better way to transition into the need for our sticker program than that video. So I want to turn it over to Councilmember Brewer to ask any questions about Intro 92 on her bill.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Again, we don't know what's going to happen in Albany. You maybe have a better sense than I do. But say, for instance, it doesn't pass, or even if it does, how will you decide which road users, obviously those who are not moving, but how would you decide when a sticker would go on a car? I don't know. I should remember, because I remember seeing cars in the past where they had the sticker adhesive still on the car. We all knew what that meant. So my question is, how would you decide which cars would get the sticker?
Thank you, Councilmember. And I do think, I understand where the past city council, including yourself, as you were a member in 2011, was coming from, because the department was, I think, quite profligate in its use of the stickers in the past. I think if we
It was David Greenfield, I can tell
yes.
you.
But the bill did pass unanimously at the time. I will say, our approach now would be to use this mechanism where absolutely necessary. everyone knows these cars in their district that just don't ever move. You can see the litter and the leaves piled up underneath. Those are the kinds of places where we would find the repeat violators. We would use the sticker as a tool to not only tell those people that they have an obligation to move their car, but also to tell their neighbors that there is someone on this block who is disrespecting your quality of life day in and day out. And so I think that's how we would focus our efforts, is on those who either have a substantial number of adjudicated ASP complaints, or who, from just looking at the street, you can tell they haven't moved their car in quite a long time.
Okay, and that would be the same whether Albany passes the camera bill or not. It would be the
Correct.
same progress or proposal. Okay.
Yeah, if
go ahead.
Albany were to pass the camera bill, we'd probably need the stickers a little bit less. If they don't, the stickers is just another tool in the toolbox, and if we're allowed to use them, we certainly will.
Okay, and then the other question, you'd use the same adhesive, because people are wondering about that. I don't know the answer. I mean, I can't remember what adhesive you used before, so I don't know if it would be the same adhesive again.
Yeah, that was quite some time ago, so I don't know if the same product
It wasn't so long ago.
necessarily exists. It was 14 years ago. That was a
Not
bit of
that
time,
long for me.
and adhesive technology has come a long way in that period of time. So, I think we definitely want to balance the interest of having very visible stickers on the car with, we don't want to damage people's personal property
I'd love to do
necessarily.
that.
So we'll probably test out a few samples.
Okay.
and
My
figure out
other
the right
question
one.
is, and I should know this, but is it accompanied by a fine, or is it just a sticker? I mean, obviously with the camera, with the police officer or sanitation giving, you're not moving, that's a fine. Does the sanitation sticker also accompanied by a fine?
Yeah, so we would write a ticket alongside.
It would be the same
sticker.
as one would get as a normal not moving for alternate side of the street parking.
Correct.
Okay. The other question I have finally is that, do you know, I think if I saw correctly, there were about 1.2 million summonses given last year, I think, or fiscal year, for lack of moving alternate side of the street parking. Do you think that having this sticker would hopefully limit? We all want less people to get fines. We just want them to move their car. Do you think that would reduce the 1.2 million people who get summonses? Obviously, there are so many times when there's no police, there's no sanitation, so that's probably a low number compared to the number of people who don't move.
Yeah, so based on at least calendar year 2025, it's actually 1.8 million summonses.
Okay.
NYPD issued about 1.3. We issued about 500,000.
Okay.
I do think that both the camera enforcement bill and the sticker bill would increase compliance, and so we would hope to see those numbers come down pretty substantially.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. Some more questions on Intro 92. Will the department distribute educational materials to road users about the re-implementation of parking stickers? And will this material include ways to safely remove whatever damaging adhesive?
We'll put something on the sticker itself that includes some instructions on removal.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Councilmember Brewer. I'm going to go into a few questions about street cleaning before I turn it over to Councilmember Hanif. So, the 2023 Mayor's Management Report announced the suspension of the street cleanliness grading program administered by the Mayor's Office of Operations and promised a successor program. At the last street cleanliness hearing in September 2025, the administration testified that field block inspections of block faces had resumed and that public-facing data would be forthcoming sometime in 2026. Could you please provide a date when this public-facing data should become available?
Yeah, so they have been conducting the block face surveys in the background for quite some time. They're sharing that data with sanitation right now. I think our hope, and I have yet to sit down with the new director of the Mayor's Office of Operations, Annie Levers, a good friend of mine, to discuss this formally, but my hope would be maybe at the beginning of the fiscal year, we'd be able to stand up a regular reporting cadence.
Awesome, thank you. Could you also please describe, to the extent that you can already, the differences between the upcoming successor program and the earlier scorecard program?
Yeah, so a number of the changes were actually made in response to an audit done of the scorecard program that showed that it was really inconsistently applied, that some blocks that were 100 feet long were getting rated with the same weight as a block that's 1,000 feet long. which just skews the numbers and doesn't create an accurate picture of how clean a neighborhood is. In addition, the ratings were all aggregated up to the sanitation section or sanitation district level, which is dozens of blocks. What we're doing right now, and what I would hope we can do when we start to share the data publicly, is actually go to a granular detail of the specific block face. So say, on 12th Street from, and I'm going to get my avenues wrong because I don't really hang out on 12th Street, but like from 6th Avenue to 7th Avenue, that street got this grade and it was rated on this date. We know that's a snapshot in time. We know that that may not be representative of how that block looks today if it was rated 3 months ago, but at least it's more data about how blocks actually look. They've also sort of changed the way that they do the rating a little bit. I think the rating initially came out of something done by I think maybe Abney or something like that back in the 70s. Our standards of cleanliness today are much, much higher than they were in the 1970s. What was considered filthy in the 1970s would be absolutely unacceptable today. What was considered clean in the 1970s would be considered dirty today. So they've done some updates to how those ratings are calculated, and we look forward to hopefully rolling something out soon.
Thank you. And just for your own personal knowledge, 12th between 6th and 7th is a real place, so you
Great.
are all good. You are not fired yet. In fiscal year 2026,
I think there's a bike lane there.
in fiscal year 2026, how many days were met with an unplanned suspension and alternate side parking regulations?
We don't have that number in front of us right now, but I think there's something like 43 or 44 ASP holidays. Plus, we, I think, had upwards of 50 suspension days for winter weather so far this year. So together, that's close to a quarter of the full year.
What would you say would be, and I think you kind of answered, but maybe there's more, about the most common reasons for these unplanned ASP suspensions?
The most common reason is winter weather. And that's in part because we don't want folks unnecessarily driving, and in part because we need all the resources we can operating our plows and salt spreaders. And even in a smaller storm where we don't need the full contingent of plows and salt spreaders, we want to make sure we can keep up with the trash collection. So we put whatever resources we can on that.
Thank you. And we wouldn't be talking about street cleanliness if we weren't talking about dog poop. So with that, I turn it over to Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, well, first I just want to thank Frank. We are really grateful, that's the Kensington community, for being a part of the pilot of the dog waste bag dispenser. And certainly it has been a little challenging to coordinate and make sure that once one roll is done, that we've got people seeing and changing and making sure that we have enough bags. But I do think that this is an important initiative, and I look forward to seeing its expansion. So on my bill, you mentioned that you don't have resources for outreach. What actions is the admin taking or has taken around educating residents about the hazards of dog waste and other animal waste?
Yeah, so first, thank you for your partnership on the pilot of the dispensers. And I do want to say that the dispenser model that we have out there on some bins right now is something that's off the shelf from a large on-demand delivery company that we're all familiar with. And so what we're doing is we're trying to identify if there's a better model out there, if there are 1,000 bag rolls of bags that we could use or something like that, in order to not have to replace the bags as often and to just make it easier for New Yorkers to use. So that's something that we're working through. And I think if we were to advance some version of the speaker's bill, I think we'd want to be able to take into account the timeline for identifying the right product to be able to use on our litter baskets in doing so.
Right, because we don't want people hoarding on bags.
We don't want people hoarding our bags, but we also don't want people, and as a dog owner myself, I can identify with the fear when you look down at the leash and you see, oh, I don't have any bags on me, I really hope my dog doesn't take a crap right now. You don't want to get to a litter basket, think there's going to be a bag there. Your dog's already done its business, and then you're like, oh, crap. So you like reach in the litter basket for a piece of newspaper and you're like trying to pick it up as best you can. That's a terrible situation. No one wants to be in that situation. On your actual question around public education, I think the dispensers and the press that we've done around them has been effective. I do think this winter, given the extended 2.5+ week period of deep cold weather, made it particularly problematic. New Yorkers just, I think they thought if it's on the ice, if it's on the snow, it just goes away. When it all melted, we saw that it doesn't. And so I do agree that we can do more on the public awareness side of things. I don't think there's anyone out there who doesn't.
I don't think I've seen what could be a very fun campaign about picking up your dog's waste. Do you know how many 311 complaints came in?
Yes. That's in calendar year. Okay. So far this calendar year, 2354.
2354.
Yep.
And where, what's the geographical pattern here?
It's a lot of Upper Manhattan. Manhattan District 12 has 165 total out of that number, which beats the next one by over 50. And then it's parts of, denser parts of Brooklyn, Central and South Bronx are the biggest districts there.
And then what do you all do with that data?
So we use it to do enforcement when we can. The enforcement, we assign enforcement resources. They are not productive because we have to, one, witness the action happening. We have to witness the dog pooping and the person failing to pick up the poop. We have to then stop them in their business, get them to give us their actual name, which they're not compelled to do because our officers are peace officers. They're not NYPD police officers. We're not going to arrest someone for failing to
totally
pick up after their
understand
dog.
that it's
And
circumstantial and
so we do that enforcement, but it is not particularly productive in situations where, and I know
I'm almost done with my time, Commissioner. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are there times when a sanitation worker picks up dog poop?
There are times, yes, but in general, sanitation workers don't sweep the sidewalk. That's the responsibility of the property owner. And so the property owner would be responsible for that.
Got it. And then how does the presence of dog waste affect other animal populations in our city?
Dog waste certainly does attract rats. That's something that we've seen in the past, and I think there's a good correlation between places that have higher rat populations and higher dog waste complaints.
I'll come back for second round.
You can continue your questioning, Councilmember.
Oh, thank you. So, rats, and is that something that the sanitation department and maybe DOHMH are collaborating on in terms of, like, here are the effects, and we're trying to get rid of rats, but you're out here not picking up your dog's crap. Like, is there?
Yeah, it's something that we definitely collaborate with them on. I think the bigger food source for rats is trash, and so containerizing trash is making a huge impact on the rat population and rat sightings. Year over year, rat complaints are down over 30% citywide, and that's on top of improvements made in the past several years. So we're making good progress there, but certainly there's more to do.
And are you seeing any geographical correlation between dog waste 311 complaints and rat 311 complaints?
We would have to look at that more specifically.
Yeah, I'd like to understand just how dog waste is truly negatively affecting our city. And as much as I sympathize with the sanitation department not having the urgent resources to tackle this issue, I do think this is one of the issues that will continue to grow. The population of dogs in Carroll Gardens is outrageous. And like I mean, it's a positive thing. I love dogs, but their population is high, at an all-time high, and I think the city really needs to take this issue very, very seriously and plan for something more public, in your face, on the bus, in the trains, so that we're constantly reminded that this is not okay and we're gonna internalize this issue. Does does the sanitation department communicate regularly with DOHMH on issues related to dog waste or other animal waste, vermin?
Yeah, we're in regular communication with DOHMH on a number of topics, predominantly on rodents and rats, but we do coordinate on dog waste as well. And obviously they run the licensing program for canines, which we do some very limited enforcement of.
Wonderful. And then I just want to, oh, is my time done again? No, sorry. I wanted to ask a few questions about not my bill, Chair Sanchez. Cool. I wanted to understand how sanitation's responding to litter baskets which are repeatedly found overflowing.
So I think the occurrence of that luckily has decreased substantially because we are at the highest level of baseline litter basket service in New York City history, or at least since we've been recording our level of litter basket service, which goes back several decades. We do, I think litter baskets are one of the most visible things that are out there that are markers of street cleanliness, and so that's something that we take very, very seriously. And if we identify that increased service is necessary or that a specific location needs to be on multiple routes, we will do so. We will also work with, if it's outside of a business, for example, and our dear friend Assistant Chief Frank Latero was just doing this yesterday with a pizza shop on the Lower East Side. If a litter basket is full of trash from just one business, maybe that business should be responsible for managing the trash. That's what we did with the pizza shop yesterday. We said, maybe you should put out some of your own trash cans for when you're open so that your patrons who are buying your pizza can use your trash can and not have to make the streets around the Lower East Side filthy. And they were very amenable to that because they saw that it was a real impact.
And how often are you all updating the litter basket routes generally and in response to the complaints?
We're looking at them on a regular basis. I wouldn't say it's something that we are doing sort of real time or on a dynamic level, but we look at needs along certain commercial corridors, and if we identify that there's recurring complaints along the corridor, we'll take action both through changing service, increasing service, as well as, if necessary, taking enforcement action where baskets are being misused.
And for areas that are like scaffolded, no lighting, how do you all respond to trash-related complaints in those parts of our city? I just witnessed Nevins Street and Baltic Street corridor. It looks like a dump, but also it's an industrial area, and also it has construction going on. There's just other sort of like no life in that area situation, but also it's adjacent to public housing. And in other parts of my district where I don't have to speak about these kinds of hotspots. And the hotspots we've had in Kensington, we've had great work thanks to Frank and just strategy through talking through sort of what's working, what's not working, and then revising. But would love to understand just like the hotspots that we know exist, like how do you all address those sections?
Yeah, so it remains the property owner's responsibility to clean the sidewalk. If there is a dump out or a large accumulation of trash, we'll assign one of our TNT crews to go through and clean it. I think one of the areas that I would love to work with the council on is how do we hold either vacant properties or sites that are under construction accountable, because right now, it's very difficult. And I live in Long Island City, where there's probably 7 or 8 new giant apartment buildings going up within a two block radius of my building, and some of them maintain their sidewalks and curb lines. Many of them do not. We would love to have better tools to be able to hold those buildings accountable.
And finally, with the trash bin deadline in June, bins have been appearing to be out of stock at many retail locations. What is your plan to increase the availability and distribution of bins citywide?
So we are on phone calls every day with the bin manufacturer and with Home Depot to try to make sure that they're making enough bins to keep up with demand. This week they're making 20,000 bins. Next week, 25,000 bins. So they are producing bins and getting them to Home Depot as quickly as possible. I was hoping to make a video with the chair and a certain council member from Staten Island to make some news on a warning period there. So more to come, I think, in the next couple days on what we plan to do as far as enforcement.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Hanif. Just picking up one last thing on the litter baskets. So in fiscal year, the executive budget 26, litter basket service was given 29.7 million enhancement, increasing to 31.2 million in fiscal year 29 and the out years. Which litter basket service operations or programs has the department allocated these resources to?
Yeah, so that's for our core litter basket service operations. So that's across all 59 districts. It includes both regular service on Monday to Saturday, as well as overtime service on Sundays. And it's the highest level of service on both weekdays and weekends that we've had in history. We did an exercise as we were expanding that service and baselining it, where we made sure that we were properly allocating the service across all 5 boroughs, rather than the sort of historical practice that the sanitation department had of really concentrating litter basket service here in Manhattan. So we do have record levels of service in parts of the Bronx, in parts of central Brooklyn, out in Flushing and Queens, that we historically did not have. So we have done that.
Speaking of record levels of service, geez, I can't speak today. Record levels of service in the South Bronx currently until the end of the fiscal year. As mentioned before, we have an additional 21 sanitation workers that have been working through there, making sure that they're doing everything possible to keep our streets clean, given the history of the area. And curious to know if we will continue to see that level of service in and around the hub by the department, or what has any updates there?
We're continuing to have conversations around that additional service, the supplemental service in the hub, as part of the budget process. We're not currently funded for it, but I would hate to see it go away. So we'll continue having conversations with your office, with the bid, with the mayor's office on how we can continue that.
I'm looking directly at the camera. We would very much hate to see this go away. So you can put that on video anywhere that needs to be seen, because the South Bronx needs our sanitation workers. Also, again, huge shout out to Frank Lettieri for everything that he has done. Okay, moving on about street cleanliness, let us bring us over to our man of the hour, Councilmember Wilson.
Thank you, Chair Sanchez. And hello, Commissioner. It's great to see you. And this is my first hearing, my first questioning, so I'm very excited about this. But as we were saying earlier, we've had a great relationship with DSNY in District 3, and I'm looking forward to that continuing. I had a couple of questions regarding that are related to street cleanliness, and also wanted to pick up on some questions around the corner basket. So in our district, I've received complaints about them going away, disappearing. And not being replaced. For example, recently, just at the corner of West 21st and 9th Avenue, West 23rd Street and 10th Avenue, it happens a lot in Chelsea. So I'm just curious, what is the process for the removal of a bin? How's that decided, and how long before that bin can be replaced in good time?
Yeah, in the past, the department had a practice where if bins were routinely being misused, or if we did not have the appropriate level of service for a bin, that we would consider taking them away to avoid creating something that would draw additional trash. We no longer have that practice. I think it just sent the wrong message to New Yorkers that the department didn't care about their neighborhoods and wouldn't provide service to their neighborhoods. We do have, I think, somewhere on the order of 3,000 litter baskets that are currently missing or misplaced based on where we think we are supposed to have litter baskets and the inventories that we do on a regular basis to see if they're actually there. There's a number of reasons they can go missing. Sometimes they grow legs, they get stolen, they get taken by a business and used for their own personal use. Sometimes they just get broken. And our sanitation workers will recycle them, and it takes some time before we can have new bins to put out. On very rare instances, we will either remove or more often relocate a bin. So if there's a bin on one corner of an intersection, we may move it to the opposite corner or to somewhere nearby where we think it'll be more effective, particularly if it's being used like in the pizza shop example that I used earlier. If there's a particular business that all of the trash in that bin seems to be coming from that business, maybe that business should have their own trash can instead of the public providing that service for them. So those are the situations. We know that we have a number of locations where trash cans are missing. I know we have put out, I think, on the order of 13 or maybe 1,400 replacement baskets just so far this calendar year to replace baskets that have been missing. So we are working our way through that and hope to make a significant dent in it over the summer, especially as we get new OTPS funding at the beginning of the fiscal year.
So if I notice a basket is missing, I call 311. How long does it take for that basket to get replaced?
It depends on the situation. There are some cases where if we have baskets in stock at that district, we can replace it same day. We're also going through sort of systematically across districts saying, let's look at this entire corridor, make sure that all the baskets are there. So we're doing both of those. We do have to order more baskets in order to replace the full 3,000 or so that are missing. But we do plan to do that as soon as the new fiscal year starts this summer.
Thank you. And I have a question about the Empire bins
Yes.
and that rollout. Very excited to see that it's going to be coming to Community Board 2, which is in my district in Manhattan. There was an article, an op-ed in the Daily News on the 18th that was complaining about that smaller buildings cannot use the Empire bins. That's a lot of the building makeup that's in Community Board 2 are smaller homes and brownstones. So those are taxpayers paying into a system that they can't use. Is there a plan for smaller buildings to be able to have access to Empire bins in due course?
Absolutely. So we are rolling out the Empire bins in Brooklyn Community District 2 this fall, and we intend to do just that as we roll out, is to test shared stationary on-street containers or Empire bins with smaller 1 to 9 unit buildings there. I think there are a few factors that we want to make sure we are considering. One is that someone has to maintain the bin. They have to keep the area around it clean. Sanitation comes through, and our contractor comes through 4 times a year and does a deep clean of the bin, cleans the inside, cleans the outside, takes off any graffiti. But someone has to just sweep up the litter that can accumulate. So we need that first and foremost. Second, someone needs to agree to have it in front of their property. I think you can imagine a beautiful brownstone block in the West Village where everyone wants to be able to put their trash somewhere, but no one wants the trash right in front of their house. We want to make sure we have a way of determining where that bin should go. And then third, I think we do have to think through, if there are some buildings on that block that want to continue using their New York City bin, the smaller bins available at Home Depot, can we allow them to do that while also having the Empire bins? What's the right sort of order? What's the right scale that makes an Empire bin actually an effective way to manage waste? But we're thinking through all of that and look forward to working with you next year when we roll out to Manhattan Community Board 2.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Okay. So going back to the removal of dog waste, I'm going to go to my bill 906. And then I will turn it over to Councilmember Thomas Henry. Are there instances where the department removes reported animal waste? And if so, what are the likely circumstances in those situations?
I would say generally no. I think our crews may in the course of their business, but generally they do not. If we get a dog waste complaint, that is considered an enforcement complaint, not a cleaning complaint. And it is the property owner's responsibility to clean the sidewalk in front of their property. So if it's on their sidewalk, they have to clean it.
Would the department require additional operational or personnel support to comply with the proposed legislation?
I think there's two things there. One, the current volume of blocks that would be covered by the legislation is relatively small. So far this calendar year, 63 blocks would meet the 3 complaints within a 7-day period as outlined in the bill. That's a relatively reasonable number of blocks considering we have who knows how many across the city, 200,000 plus. Once you create an incentive for people to call 311 over and over and over and over again, they will do so. So I worry that 63 could turn into 6,000 pretty quickly, and that would be challenging for our current resources. The bill also does allow for us to either clean the waste or do enforcement on the property owner, which I think is a good optionality for us. So as long as that remains the case, I think we would be able to handle it with a reasonable increase in the number of blocks.
Under the current circumstances, how are 311 complaints for animal waste handled?
So we have a canine enforcement unit within our sanitation enforcement agents that they will go out and see if they can see someone failing to pick up their dog waste. I will say we did a 3-day stakeout in Mott Haven in 2024 that yielded 1 summons. We did in 2025 a week-long patrol in Washington Heights, Harlem, Morningside Heights, and Flatbush, all in response to 311 requests, and got 0 summonses out of that week-long patrol. So it is very challenging. Once someone sees someone in green walking down the block, then all of a sudden they remember the right thing to do. It's when they think no one's watching that they don't.
Great. And now, before Councilmember Thomas Henry speaks, I also want to give a huge shout out to Junction Boulevard in their need for trash cans. Please, Frank. Literally, and with that, I turn it over to Councilmember Chanel Thomas Henry.
Thank you, and thank you for plugging more trash cans in my district. Thank you. I have a question first about alternate side of street parking. So predominantly in my district, we have one side of the street per day, but I have noticed throughout the city, there are various days for the same side of the street. How does the department or how do you determine which areas warrant additional cleaning on the same side for multiple days?
Yeah, so it's predominantly denser and more commercial areas have multiple days of cleaning on each side. So the common setup is you'll have one side is Monday, Thursday, the other side is Tuesday, Friday, which then means that there's 4 potential times that you'd have to move your car if you park on that block. I will say if we can, as I mentioned in my testimony, if we can substantially increase compliance, we are committed to reducing the frequency of alternate side parking down to just 1 day a week, at least on residential blocks citywide. And that's something that I would really be excited about doing.
Got it. Next question, and as Frank has been shouted out numerous times today, I want to shout him out as well for the always being responsive, the entire team, to our needs. I have one situation the team is helping me with now, but I just want to ask, particularly in my district, and I can imagine probably throughout the city, households are becoming larger and larger. So there's a lot more trash, and individuals are either taking their household garbage and putting it in the nearest litter box, or the bins at that particular residence is just overwhelming. Have you guys kind of looked at how to mitigate or help with this overabundance of increased trash?
Yeah, we do a lot of enforcement in that area. Buildings are 1 to 9 unit buildings are responsible right now for containerizing their trash. The trash has to fit in the bin, not next to the bin, not on top of the bin, not exploding out of the bin. It has to be in the bin. The lid has to close. So we've done a tremendous amount of enforcement on that as that requirement has taken effect over the last 16 months or so, and we will continue to do so. We also have increased the enforcement that we're doing of misuse of litter baskets. We had a bill that the City Council enacted a few years ago that allows us to use identifying information on an Amazon box or a piece of mail that's in a trash bag in a litter basket to issue an improper disposal summons. And we have really dramatically increased the amount of that enforcement that we're doing.
Okay. And my last thing is more of a comment on behalf of some young constituents. Students in the 5th grade at PSQ 19 are working towards earning a certificate of civic readiness. Part of the process involves each class getting involved in a Take Action project. Each class was tasked with identifying a community problem and selecting a community leader to contact about it as part of their Take Action initiative. Here is the work regarding the topic of garbage in their community. So I did receive approximately 50 letters from 5th graders, including some photos. I do want to read one of them. Did you know a lot of garbage gets thrown away in the street? I don't really like that because it could sometimes smell. So I think we need more sanitation police, and they should give lots of tickets to people that throw garbage. You can help us make the community better and healthier. Thanks a lot. P.S. Have a good day, and I hope you make the streets cleaner. So approximately 50 letters from 5th grade students at PS 19 sent letters, sent photos. This is a photo with less police and a lot of trash, flies, rats, and cleaner streets. So that is on behalf of some of my younger constituents to the Department of Sanitation.
Great. Well, I would love to come out and meet with those 5th graders myself and share
I will definitely arrange it.
my strong interest in cleaner streets with them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member Thomas Henry. I do want to echo, I've also had a number of students come and visit our office, all on dog waste initiatives. So as many schools that you want to visit and talk about street cleanliness, that would be awesome. Going back to something you mentioned earlier, the Canine Enforcement Unit, the CEU. So the Sidewalk Cafe Initiative, the Office of the Sidewalk Cafe Initiative, places like Paris have tried things like poop scoopers and, poop machines. Are there any thoughts on transitions from the CEU to an actual office of like dog poop cleanliness? Would that be something that the department would be open or curious about?
I think that because of the challenge with enforcement in that area generally, as I've discussed before, it's a challenging place to try to dedicate our limited resources. We can get a lot more enforcement done on other areas of cleanliness in a much more productive and impactful way that leads to cleaner streets than assigning a sanitation enforcement agent to patrolling for dog waste violators and issuing maybe one ticket every couple days. So I think it's, and I want to make sure that you all are not hearing me saying that I don't think this is an important issue, because it certainly is, but it is one that I think really demands creative solutions and I think just accountability from New Yorkers for their fellow New Yorkers. It's not something that the sanitation department can do alone.
Appreciate that. I do want to flag, we do have other uniform officers that patrol our subways and patrol our other places. So maybe we should transition from subway patrols to poop patrols. And even if we don't have tickets, our streets would be cleaner. Okay.
I can't speak for those other uniformed agencies.
Moving on, I want to make sure that I'm touching on about the Speaker Menin's Intro 857. I just want to ask quickly, what would be required to install dog waste basket dispensers on all or adjacent to all public waste receptacles? And then are there some baskets that are easier than others to act as better scaffolds for these dog waste bags?
The dispensers that we have right now only really work with the better bin litter baskets that we've been rolling out for the last few years. So that's around 6,000 of the 23,000 litter baskets that could host dog waste bag dispensers. We can't put them on the wire litter baskets because the sanitation workers actually just pick up the entire basket and dump them in the truck, and having something on the outside would be dangerous for them. There obviously would be an upfront cost for purchasing and installing the dispensers. That's a one-time OTPS cost. I think that where the bigger resource need is, and this gets into the conversation around having community partners, is in having someone checking the dispenser on a very regular basis to make sure that there are bags in there, that the bags are accessible, that the bags aren't, tied up and clogged and whatever. Because we don't want to be in a situation where we're telling people they don't need to take a bag with them, and then there's no bags available. So that's, I think, where the greater resource need is, and I think where having community partners has been a tremendous help in the early pilot.
Absolutely. Speaking of sanitation vehicles, can you talk to us about the current status of our city sanitation fleet in terms of repairing and maintaining the vehicles? What obstacles currently stand in the way to promptly repair for out-of-service vehicles, and how many of the DSNY fleet mechanic vacancies exist, and what is the department doing to hire and retain these mechanics?
Yeah, I would say mechanic staffing is one of the most important issues that we face right now. In the last administration, with the recurring hiring freezes and restrictions on civilian hiring, we really lost a lot of mechanics to retirement, and we're not able to replace them. So our fleet out of service rates have increased substantially. I think, where our target used to be less than 20% out of service on a given day, today we're happy if we get 26, 27%. And often we'll see certain types of equipment go over 30%, even as high as 40% out of service. And that's a big challenge, because that means that we can't assign the resources we need to do the job that the public expects of us. And it's an issue that we are having regular conversations with the mayor's office about. That's something, yet another example of the previous administration leaving something behind that we're trying to grapple with.
A really great joke, but I'm going to hold myself back. Can you talk about so one of the things that I notice is that our sanitation trucks don't have any brooms or anything hanging off the sides to help potentially with any of the trash juice or trash debris that spills from the collection trucks. And curious, are the sanitation workers required to sweep glass or debris from the street that results from collections? And then what are the trucks equipped with to collect juice that results from refuse or recycling collection?
Sure. So absolutely, yes, they're required to have brooms, and they're required to use them to sweep up spillage. I'll let Chief of Department Penalino talk a little bit more about how specifically we enforce that with the sanitation workers. Obviously, we need to balance, them being able to do their job effectively while also keeping streets clean and not causing a mess themselves. But I'll let Anthony speak to that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Chair. So yeah, absolutely. Every sanitation crew that goes out is required to have a broom and shovel on them, equipped on the truck. They are required to pick up any spillage that is caused by them when they do service any material. Liquid, however, is a little tougher to sweep and shovel into a truck, and that does happen from time to time. But we do have hopper plugs that are supposed to be, on the trucks, so that the juice stays within the truck. But if you do have any instances where you did not see spillage being cleaned up, I'd love to know those locations and look into it personally.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And let's talk about e-waste. What is the current state of residential e-waste curbside pickup? And if none, when could residents expect this service to resume?
There is currently no residential curbside e-waste collection.
Sorry.
I know, shocking. And I think it's unlikely that we would restore that service in the future. It was created in response to the initial implementation of the New York State e-waste disposal ban, which was, and I know Councilmember Brewer is going to say 11 years ago was not that long ago, but you think about the way that TVs have changed over the last 11 years. At the time, people were throwing out 40-inch CRT TVs that weighed 250 pounds. Now, you have a 65-inch LCD TV and it weighs 25 pounds. So it's much easier for New Yorkers to take advantage of the disposal options that are available to them under the, and I will say this, New York State law on e-waste recycling. I think if there are improvements that we want to make to the options available to us, the convenience standards for e-waste recycling, that's another great conversation to have with our state counterparts around whether or not that program is actually working for New Yorkers.
Okay, look at the state. And how does the department currently manage batteries that enter the waste stream?
Yeah, and I will add just
besides
on
them exploding.
Going back to the e-waste question first. We do have a program for larger apartment buildings called eCycle New York City that is actually run through the state take-back program that serves, I think, around 19,000 households or 19,000 buildings. Yeah, 19,000 buildings with 10 or more units. So that is available for larger buildings. That's something that e-waste manufacturers and retailers pay for. So it's not something that taxpayers are paying for. And that has been really productive. Tens of thousands of tons of e-waste diverted over the life of that program. For batteries, our number one goal is if you have a lithium-ion battery, do not throw it out in the trash. We have every week 2, 3, 4, 5 trucks that catch fire because batteries are in the back of the truck and they explode. That's really, really dangerous. So I ask every New Yorker, if you have something that contains a lithium-ion battery, that's basically anything that you can charge, don't throw it in the trash. The state, again, has a battery recycling law where retailers that sell products that contain batteries or that sell rechargeable batteries are required to take back many of those battery products. Unfortunately, right now, the state is the only entity that can enforce that law. I think that's somewhere that we have done advocacy in the past around giving the city the ability, because we have tremendous enforcement resources, giving the city the ability to enforce take back and recycling requirements around things like batteries, e-waste, while we're naming things that we could enforce the plastic bag ban, which we know a lot of businesses are not complying with right now, but we have no power to do anything about that. So I think those are all places where we could do more.
Sounds like an IWAM to me. Let us go into. Should we finish the bills or go into containerization? Oh, if Councilmember Brewer has additional questions before I go on a question tirade, let's turn it over to Councilmember Brewer.
Thank you very much. I just want to talk the litter basket situation. We have on the street, obviously the ones that are the mesh, and then you have the new ones that are, you can pull it out. The trouble with the newer ones that people complain about is they put stickers all over them. This is ironic that I'm just talking about stickers, but there are stickers all over them. So I'm getting complaints, Can you imagine people saying, I want to go back to the mesh ones? So how are we dealing with the cleanliness of the ones that can take stickers? They all have stickers on them. And then I have more sticker questions. But have you thought about what to do about that issue? Because it does give, it's not a trash issue, but it gives an unkept image to the trash receptacles.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And we are looking at where we have the better bins and trying to put them in places where we think they will attract fewer stickers. We know, for example, we put some of the early models out along Bedford Avenue in Williamsburg, and those things got totally trashed.
With stickers?
With stickers, yes. Stickers, marker, graffiti,
right, exactly, everything.
All kinds of stuff. So I think, we have learned that there are some places where those better bins work really well. There are some places where a traditional wire litter basket is just fine. As we work to replace the roughly 3,000 or so missing litter baskets this summer, We're going to mostly do that with wire litter baskets just because they're more cost effective. We could get one of those for just over $200. One of the better bins costs $1,200, so we can get more bang for our buck.
Okay. The other thing is, now maybe I should know this, but Department of Sanitation is responsible for getting stickers off of street lights, et cetera, or is that the Department of Transportation?
That's DOT.
So if it's on a DOT receptacle of any kind, then they would be responsible for getting it off.
That's correct.
Okay, but so your sanitation workers only would give summons if that's what's necessary, if it was on a sanitation infrastructure, so to speak. Because it is complicated for I was out cleaning this weekend with people who pick up trash, the volunteers, and we were with our little receptacles, and we were trying to figure out cigarette butts being the number one cleanup. So there's a real concern about, is there anything we can do about, we're talking about dog waste, now we got cigarette butt waste. Is there anything we can do for that? But the stickers were everywhere. The kids were trying to get them off the infrastructure. So you would only be responsible for, somebody who's advertising real estate that's throwing their stickers all over your trash bins. That would be you.
Yeah,
It's
and
not only getting it off, somebody should go after that person, the state.
And we can do enforcement if there is identifying information in the sticker that, a phone number, a business name or address. We can then do posting enforcement.
If it's on your receptacles or your infrastructure.
No, any public infrastructure. We can do enforcement.
You can do enforcement, but you don't take it off.
Yeah, if it's a paper posting, we can take it off, and we do.
These
in
are
the
ones
course of
with
enforcement.
these are one with the adhesive, unfortunately.
Yes, and those are difficult to remove, and so our enforcement agents are not able to, and it's the responsibility of the maintaining agency of that piece of infrastructure.
So you would give the ticket to the offensive persons who are putting up the stickers, but you wouldn't take it off. What would be helpful would be for our newsletters. We have a huge newsletter to understand, like the program you just talked about for the larger buildings, for e-waste, et cetera.
E-cycle, yep.
E-cycle, something to make it clear as to what it is not clear to the public who's responsible for what, or even that these programs exist. So anyway, what are we going to do with the cigarette butts? Any idea? Thousands of them.
Yes, the cigarette butts are another issue that's very challenging for us. Those, if they're on the sidewalk, they're the responsibility of the property owner. If they're in the street, they do get picked up often by our mechanical brooms. You'd be surprised if you see a load dumped from a mechanical broom, what kind of stuff we can pick up with those brooms. But at the end of the day, if it's on the sidewalk, it's the property owner's responsibility.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. I wanted to talk about a question briefly about the Precision Cleaning Initiative. That remains active. Can you please describe the intent and the impact of this initiative under our current mayoral admin?
So the Precision Cleaning Initiative was funded back in 2021 to fill general cleaning resource gaps. This was in the wake of really, really, really bad budget cuts during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the Precision Cleaning Initiative was sort of a bucket of additional resources that we could assign where problems arose. And, as we heard from elected officials and others, that there were issues in their districts. In the last administration, those resources were predominantly used for addressing homeless conditions and encampments in partnership with DHS and the police department. This administration has changed its approach to those cleanups. They're still happening, but there's a sustained amount of outreach and engagement that happens ahead of any cleanup. But we are still using those resources to address those conditions as our partner agencies request them.
Okay, great. Actually, let's stay on this topic. So we're going to be talking about the Interagency Homeless Encampment Task Force. Can you please describe the department's present role in the Interagency Homeless Encampment Task Force? Specifically, if you could go into how many of the department staff are dedicated to this task force, what the approximate cost is for the department's involvement in the task force, what is the process by which the task force determines where to conduct its operations, and then we will have some more after, but let's start there.
Yeah, so I'll start with cost and resources. We have 21 sanitation workers that are funded through the PCI program, the Precision Cleaning Initiative. Not all of those are on homeless encampments. If there are not homeless encampment cleanings scheduled for a given day, they're sent out to do other productive cleaning work, either sweeping along commercial corridors or emptying additional litter baskets or whatever work there is to do in those districts. The department's current role in the task force is that when DHS identifies a location that is ready to be cleaned, which means that they have done sustained engagement over the course of several days with the individuals and clients that are present, then they will call us and we will do a joint engagement with DHS, where DHS will help to get the client to housing if they can, or at least get them to sort of identify what is trash amongst the stuff that's on premises, and we will take that material that is identified as trash.
Is the department staff permitted to issue a notice of violation when performing task force operations, or are they only present for cleanup purposes? If you are permitted, what are the most common violations cited during these operations?
They're generally present for cleanup purposes only.
Great. And then if you can talk about this, how does the department balance its interest in street cleanliness with awareness that the city is dealing with a affordability crisis and the impact that individuals are experiencing housing insecurity?
So again, we only participate in these kinds of cleanups when DHS calls us in and after they've done sustained engagement over the course of several days, because we want to, one, treat individuals experiencing homelessness as real people that have real, sometimes often serious issues that they need to deal with, and DHS is the best agency to be able to address those. We do come in at DHS's request to clear any material that's identified as trash.
Thank you. And I heard the magic number, 21 workers in this precision cleaning initiative. Just 21 workers in the hub. Also sounds very nice. So speaking of workers, there's also the Targeted Neighborhood Task Force, which remains active. Can you please describe the intent and the impact of this task force under the current mayoral administration?
Yeah, TNT is a great program. And for a bit of a history lesson, there was a deputy mayor back in the 1980s, Nat Leventhal, who wrote a very boring but now sort of notorious memo that basically said, DOT does this, Parks does this, Sanitation does this, and everything else is kind of no one's job. And for 3 decades, the city followed that memo to a T. So there were lots and lots of places across New York City that had no agency that was responsible for maintaining them or cleaning them on a regular basis. TNT seeks to solve that problem, particularly as over the course of the last decade, we've created new public spaces, new public infrastructure, things like plazas and like little daylighting bulbs at the end of a street, all kinds of things that DOT is building on a regular basis that someone needs to maintain. And so TNT exists to be able to clean those locations on a regular basis. We have some 1786 sites that we clean on a regular basis through that program. We are happy to add more locations to that list. If you have identified any in your district, that should be on it. And it's, I think, a really productive and really effective use of resources.
How does TNT interact with the department's illegal dumping prevention and enforcement work?
So many times those locations that were previously no man's land were also subject to illegal dumping. So you'll find a lot of the places where we have TNT crews assigned also now have our illegal dumping cameras, where we're doing illegal dumping enforcement on a regular basis. We will, if a TNT crew does encounter illegally dumped material or piles of trash or a couch, they'll clean it up.
Speaking of piles of trash, let's just ask these questions real quick about Councilmember Hankerson's legislation. Does GSNY track improper disposal of C&D waste? And what percentage of C&D waste is improperly disposed of?
We don't track improper disposal of C&D waste specifically. We don't really differentiate when we're responding to illegal dumping what kind of trash it is. I think by and large, most construction and demolition waste in New York City is managed through a BIC registered C&D hauler. I think a lot of what you see as illegally dumped material comes from smaller renovation jobs or contractors that may not be licensed by DCWP. And so I think that's definitely an area where we think that greater coordination is possible, and I think additional regulation and lawmaking is probably needed. Our concern about this bill is not about the approach that it takes, but just that we don't necessarily understand the industry well enough as the Department of Sanitation to be able to weigh in fully on how this would impact construction. So we want to make sure that we're working with DOB, DCWP, BIC, and others to understand the full impact here and make sure we're taking the right action.
Given that you don't understand this properly, I can understand if you can't answer this next question, but in your opinion, is there a correlation between unpermitted C&D waste and the illegal dumping of this kind of waste, or is that something that you need more information on?
I think there's likely a correlation there, but we haven't done any data analysis to be able to back that up.
Okay. So
and
now
if I could just briefly on that topic, as you'll recall from our last hearing on the solid waste management plan, one of the 8 subject areas that we are focused on in the solid waste management plan for the first time is the construction and demolition industry from a holistic waste management perspective. So I think at a minimum, as we do that work, engage with stakeholders and explore the potential for more sustainable, less impactful C&D facilities across the city, I think this is an issue that we should certainly bring into that conversation.
Great. Thank you for that. Just to give a roadmap of where we're going to go for the council, the rest of the council members, we're going to go into questions on containerization, including Empire bins and the wheelie bins. Then we will go into Councilmember Abreu's legislation on commercial organic waste. Then we will go into the my legislation and Janar's legislation, and then end with highway cleaning. We're almost there. Okay. So, for Empire bins, the department has begun installation of on-street containers, also known as the Empire bins, to hold residential trash and recycling between collection days. How does the department intend to enforce cleanliness standards to keep the areas around them clean? The white bollards that are installed around the Empire bins to increase visibility to cars are occasionally knocked off, or maybe not intentionally severely damaged, who knows. But has the department developed any strategy yet to minimize this occurrence?
Absolutely. Right now we have Empire bins in Manhattan Community District 9 alone, and we are doing enforcement up there, particularly around parking, either obstructing the bin or parking too close to the bin, which prohibits us from collecting it because we do need a few inches on either side in order to safely get the truck in there, because we don't want to drop a bin on someone's car. Then it becomes our problem. So we are doing that enforcement today and expect to scale that up in the future. The cleanliness, that's something that we actually have a rule that we published, I think, last week as we expand the program to Brooklyn Community District 2 that more clearly establishes the cleanliness responsibilities of the property owners that host the bin in terms of keeping the bins themselves clean, keeping the area immediately around the bins clean, and also removing snow, particularly from the tops of the bins, so that we can collect them following a snowstorm.
Has the department observed any technical issues making the Empire bins inaccessible to the building's waste management staff? And if so, what can staff members do, or who can they contact to regain access to these bins?
We haven't actually identified very many issues at all in that regard. The biggest challenge that we've had is in Community District 9 is that DOT has a really ambitious million paving schedule, particularly after this last winter. And so as they've had to mill streets in order to repave them, we've had to relocate some bins temporarily. And while those bins are relocated, we do lock them so that people aren't using them while we can't service them. So that's a temporary change, and during that change, people are putting their trash out in bags as they historically would.
Can you also go into any recurring maintenance issues that the Empire bins have faced, if any?
I think I mean, you can go up to Manhattan Community District 9 today and walk around and see them. I think they look great, and they stay relatively clean. We have our contractor cleaning them 4 times a year, and I think are looking to refine whether that's the right number of cleanings. We might have to do it more frequently in some parts of the city, less frequently in others. But they've been out there for a year. They look really good, and I think we're really pleased with them.
I was excited to see the new bins at the Belmont bid. I was sad I wasn't there to help open them, but they look really lovely. Speaking of Manhattan Community District 9, can you describe lessons learned from that pilot and how the department is taking that information into the areas where the program is expanding?
So I think the great thing about Manhattan Community District 9, and one of the reasons that we started there, is that they have 2 things that make it really easy to test a program like this. They have really straight streets and really rectangular grid, and they have relatively consistent building typologies across individual blocks. So instead of solving for every potential variable, we were just testing, do the bins work? Can the trucks pick them up? Do people use them? And on those 3 factors, I think it's been a wild success. As we expand to Brooklyn Community Board 2 this fall, we'll get to a much more varied streetscape. We'll get to a much more complicated set of streets that have 1 ways, 2 ways, more like left and right side trucks that we have to take into account. We'll also have some very, very, very large buildings for the first time in this program that will require 3, 4, 5 bins to set out their waste appropriately. And so I think we're looking forward to testing how those different factors affect the bins. Do we need to change frequency of collection in order to reduce the number of bins that we're putting out? Can we use, as we discussed before, the shared stationary on-street containers for smaller buildings that either 1 to 9 unit buildings that are currently required to use the NYC bins, or the 10 to 30 unit buildings that have a choice between NYC bins and Empire bins. Those are all things that we're looking forward to testing this fall.
So in the test pilot, curious, because all of the waste needs to be containerized, how are residents expected to deal with bulk materials like mattresses and whatnot when they are in the finalized containerization?
Yeah, so they can set their bulk material out for rear loader collection. So we don't collect them in the container trucks. We collect them with a separate rear loader truck that continues to service every single street in the neighborhood.
Awesome. And then do enforcement agents have discretion when it comes to summonsing the uncontainerized trash?
Yeah, our enforcement agents always have discretion. We encourage them to try to be as consistent in their application of the law as they can be, because enforcement is only effective if it is consistent and expected. And so that's what we try to achieve.
Is the department aware of any expansion of the rat contraceptive pilot program in areas where Empire bins will be installed over the next year? And if you have, is there any information that you guys can share with us about the rat pilot program to date?
I think we have to defer to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene on that one.
Thank you. We will circle back to them. And then does the department have, has it made any further determinations as to the assignment of Empire bins to multiple residential buildings as opposed to one-to-one assignment?
Yeah, so that's what I was referring to earlier on the shared bins. Either, you could see a case where you have two buildings next to each other that are in the 10 to 30 category. They don't necessarily each need their own Empire bin. If one building is willing to host and maintain the bin for both, great. There's a lot of situations where you have smaller buildings like that where they already have shared building maintenance staff or a shared super across multiple buildings. That's a great example of where you would have one bin serving multiple buildings. We also are looking forward to testing Empire bins for blocks that have smaller buildings, so long as we can, as I discussed before, find someone who's willing to have it in front of their property, someone who's willing to maintain it, and get the right number of people sort of on board to use the bin so that it makes sense.
Excited to see that and Bronx Community Board 2, where we have a lot of our smaller houses where the bins will be coming next.
We'll be there next spring.
Yes, very exciting. Has the department begun to administer any fees to the owners of residential buildings for the city's installation and maintenance of these bins? And if so, where are these fees being administered? Or when does the department expect to begin doing that?
So the City Council has authorized us to assess fees up to $55 per unit for the provision and maintenance of the bins. We have not at this time imposed any of those fees. Right now we're just in one community district. We're expanding the pilot to another community district this fall. I think we'll have that conversation as we get to the larger citywide rollout in the future.
Oh, how nice of you. What is the current status of our sanitation trucks that accommodate the Empire bins? What's the procurement method to acquire these trucks? And what is the timeline for when a U.S. supplier might be able to establish the manufacturing process? And does that align with the department's goals of citywide containerization by 2032?
So the trucks are currently largely built in the U.S. The chassis is built at a factory in Macungie, Pennsylvania, about 10 minutes away from where I grew up. I was out there at the factory a couple weeks ago. It's really cool. I encourage you to go out there if you can. The bodies are made right now in Italy, and they are shipped over and assembled into the final truck out on Long Island. So much of the work is happening in the United States. We would love to have the bodies manufactured here in the U.S. One, because we believe in the power of American labor, and two, because we like to have our suppliers close so that we can really hold them accountable. So we have had some preliminary discussions with the Italian body manufacturer about potentially onshoring either individual component assembly or the full manufacturing process here to the U.S., and are excited about the prospect of doing that.
Who would know that our sanitation trucks are Italian? Arrivederci.
The bins are Spanish.
Oh, wow. We are quite European here. Looks like we need a vacation on this lovely summer day. Now let's talk about the wheelie bins. The Department of Sanitation dictates that the buildings with up to 9 residential units use an official NYC bin starting next month. What can owners of these buildings expect in terms of outreach, education, and enforcement after June 1st?
So we have done a tremendous amount of outreach and enforcement. We've done a tremendous amount of outreach and education. We are, I think, as we do with any new program, are going to start with a warning period. We're hoping to announce the details of that warning period in the coming days. But we have heard people that have said, "I've gone to Home Depot, I can't find the bins. What can I do?" And we absolutely want to give them the opportunity to buy the bin, use the bin properly, and they shouldn't be responsible for the fact that there are shortages of bins. So we plan to be very flexible with that warning period.
Will the department issue notice of violation to buildings which use a bin that is not official but otherwise meets the size requirements for such containers?
The department will at some point in the future do that, yes.
Are there any city resources available for homeowners who may not have immediate access to disposable income for replacing their unofficial wheelie bins with official New York City bins?
Yeah, the City Council did authorize a program for certain homeowners that meet certain eligibility criteria for some affordability programs to have reimbursement for their bins. And The uptake on that program has been very positive. Lots of folks have bought their bins and gotten reimbursed through the Department of Finance.
How will so people buy these new bins? They have to throw away their old bins. So how is the department handling the throwing away of old bins, and how are building owners required to recycle their old containers?
So if they set their old bin out on the recycling day, we'll throw it in the recycling bin.
Wow, you hear that? Just put it out on the trash on recycling day. That is a very
Specifically on the recycling day.
On
If you put
recycling
it out on
day.
the trash day, it might go in the trash.
Okay. Are there any specific reasons outside of the last admin that we're just using the auto branded wheelie bins exclusively? Are the side loading trucks unable to accommodate similar bins of different brands?
So the NYC bins are not collected with side loading trucks. They're collected with tippers on the back of our rear loader trucks, which we are adding to every new truck that gets delivered to us going forward. So at some point, probably 3 or 4 years from now, we will have tippers on every truck, and we intend to use them to collect the bins. I think the model that the last administration pursued was an exclusive concession to one company as a way to keep the cost of the bins low. The cost is, I would say, $20 or $30 less than the equivalent off-the-shelf retail bin. But one of the things that we've seen over the last 6 months in particular is that having only one supplier means that you sort of have to deal with the whims of that supplier and whether or not they want to make bins on a given day. So I think it's something that we would explore in the future, is opening it up to more suppliers. But right now we have one supplier that is making the New York City bins, and we don't intend to change that in the immediate future.
And has Otto fully cleared its backlog of orders and deliveries on wheelie bins?
Yeah, every order that was placed online was delivered by April 1st of this year. So right now, the only way to purchase New York City bins is by either going to a Home Depot or by ordering them through one of Home Depot's online delivery partners, Instacart, Uber Eats, and DoorDash, I think. So you can get a bin through one of those mechanisms. I think one of the things that we'd like to explore further, and we've heard interest from several council members on, is can we do a local event where we are offering bins for sale in the community, so that people, if maybe you don't live near a Home Depot or you don't have a car and you can't drive to Home Depot, you can just go to your local park or green market and buy a bin there. I think we'd have to think through the logistics of how that works and how the department could staff that, but it's something that I would like to explore.
That would be, I'll add a +1 to that. That would be great. I'm more than happy to help host one in the South Bronx. What strategies do you believe could be implemented in neighborhoods where buildings have limited frontage and very narrow sidewalks, like those in the South Bronx, causing compliance with containerization requirements by low-density buildings to create pedestrian obstructions? Specifically, has the department performed any analysis of how containerization caused pedestrian obstructions may impact liability for hazardous sidewalk conditions?
We haven't done specific analysis of that. We do understand that it is the sidewalks are a constrained environment, and particularly on streets where you have commercial ground floor and residential second and third floor, you can have a lot of bins out there because the business has to have a bin, the residential property has to have a bin. There's just bins everywhere. So that's a place where I think the stationary or the shared stationary on-street containers or shared Empire bins could be really effective. You could have all of the residents on one block put their trash in an Empire bin and reduce the number of wheelie bins that are sort of floating around. But we just need to make sure that we can do that effectively and that we have a maintenance agreement in place for the Empire bin.
Great. Councilmember Brewer.
So I love my wheelie bin, but just when you get to Manhattan, you got a different group of people. So we purchased our wheelies. We like our wheelies. So we have to give them up and do the stationary. That's not going to make people happy. In other words, we want to keep the smaller buildings all have the wheelies.
The only bin,
We
the
love
only,
the wheelies.
Yeah, the only, I appreciate that you love the
I
wheelie
love my
bins.
wheelie.
The only buildings where we're saying that you have to use the Empire bins are 30-plus unit buildings,
understand
which
that, but
generally do not have wheelie bins.
I understand
today.
that, but I'm just saying you said earlier that maybe you would have more shared, I don't know what you call them, the Empire bins. That wasn't clear what you were saying, because you were saying that maybe in the future everybody on the block could share the stationary
We would,
ones.
what
Wasn't clear.
I was trying to say was that we would need enough people on the block to opt in to using the Empire bin,
Okay.
to choose to using the Empire bin
Okay.
in order for that
Can-
to make sense.
When you get to Manhattan, can you be a little bit clearer? Because people who already bought their $51 bin are not going to want to give it up, even
Yeah.
for $51, to use the one that's stationary.
We appreciate that.
All right. And then secondly, I guess you're going to start charging, because they love it in District 9 because they don't pay a damn thing for it. Okay? I'm just being clear. So now when you get to Manhattan and you have people charged, they're not going to like it so much. You said that the building that has a bin in front has to clean it, but I thought we were suggesting that we pay the sanitation or the city so that the sanitation department cleans that bin. Who's cleaning the bin?
So the sanitation department and our contractor do maintenance and 4 times a year cleaning. What the property owner is responsible for is cleaning any litter or debris that accumulates around the vicinity of the bin.
Okay, so that $55, which I voted against, on a regular basis, that is what you're paying. We're paying, the co-op and condo people are going to be paying for sanitation to clean it 4 times a year.
We have not at this time done a rulemaking to implement the $55
I think you should get rid
fee
of that
was authorized
$55.
by the city council.
I know, I didn't agree with that. Thank you.
Yep.
Talk about a notice and comment period. I want to actually go into further into the Empire bins, aka the new Labubu's of the New York City residents. How is sanitation taking measures to ensure that enforcement doesn't unfairly penalize homeowners who have had their trash can Labubu stolen from them, as they are have done the process right, paid the $51, then someone steals their bin because they're $51. How do we make sure that we're not unfairly penalizing these homeowners if they're in the process of getting a new bin?
So I think the first thing is right now we are not enforcing the requirement to use a New York City bin, and we expect to have an extensive warning period in place. We have not seen a tremendous amount of theft. If there are specific locations where council members or community members are seeing that there's a lot of theft occurring of New York City bins, we'd love to hear about it to try to talk through what the potential solutions could be.
Just flagging for Bronx Community Board 2, where it's coming, a lot of times their regular trash cans are being stolen from their homes. So just imagine once we have required trash cans, just understanding what that will happen. So that is a huge concern in the district as it rolls out. They're excited, but also they're like, what happens when they steal our trash cans again? And this time it's not, it's a $51 New York trash can. So making sure that we have that. If there's any clearance or guidance that you could provide in terms of what happens if there's a notice of violation in this instant, and kind of what steps homeowners should take so that they can defend against a notice of violation when, they had their bin, it was just stolen. Okay,
We'll be happy to work on that.
Thank you so much. Moving on, has the department considered implementing temporary property-specific exceptions to waste containerization requirements for when building owners need to manage atypical waste volumes, such as after a holiday or when a tenant moves out? If you could speak to if the department still offers pre-scheduled bulk collections from residential buildings, and what property owners should do if they're experiencing atypical waste volumes, and having to choose between putting themselves at risk of attracting rodents due to storing excessive waste until container volume becomes available, or putting themselves at risk of receiving a citation for placing waste directly on the curb.
So bulky waste should not go in the containers. That'll just cause the containers to overflow. Bulky waste can be set out on the curb as it normally would on the appropriate day for bulk waste collection. In many parts of the city that are denser, they receive bulk waste collection multiple times a week. In more low density areas, they may receive bulk waste collection just once a week. You can go on our website, nyc.gov/sanitation, put in your address, and find out your collection schedule for bulk waste, trash, recycling, and compost.
Thank you. Can you share any findings regarding time required to complete collection routes in fully containerized areas? Have you seen that it takes typically more or less time than with the same area had not been containerized?
Right now, we only have Manhattan Community District 9 to work from, and in general, they're completing the routes as we've designed them within target. So we're very pleased with the effectiveness of the collection. I will say the fact that we have to run left side trucks, right side trucks, and rear loader trucks all on trash collection, all in the same district on the same day, does mean that it is not more efficient at this moment than just running rear loader trucks. But we think that the benefit of containerization outweighs the small additional cost of that collection resource.
What analysis, if any, has the department undertaken to determine an acceptable loss of parking space caused by containerization?
I don't see it as a loss of parking spaces. I see it as an allocation of public space. When we released the Future of Trash report several years ago, we did an assessment of all of the available street parking and projected what containers would take up. It's a relatively small number, I think less than 4% citywide. And as we continue to expand the program, we will continue to refine our approach. As if we can use more shared containers, that's less of an impact on parking. We know that there are some places where there may not be a parking lane at all. And so we have to look at, is the sidewalk wide enough that we could put containers on the sidewalk versus in the street? There may be some places where there's not enough sidewalk space and there's no parking lane, so we need to find alternative means to containerize those buildings. So we're sort of taking an all of the above approach.
Speaking about adjustments, is there any conversation at all? I understand that the tippers are being loaded to the back of the trucks, but for routes where cars are densely parked along the curb, that it might not be fruitful. Is there any conversation about the potential of using side loading tippers?
Not at this time, in part because the rear loader trucks are so flexible because they can collect material from the containers. They can also collect loose bagged material. They can collect litter baskets. They can collect bulk material. So they're really a sort of Swiss Army knife of a truck, and a dedicated side loader for just the New York City bins, I think would be a little too specific.
Okay, let us move on. Let's finish up the bills and then highway cleaning, and we will be wrapped up. So talking about Majority Leader Abreu's Bill Intro 31, how does the department determine which establishments are designated as covered under existing commercial organic waste source separation requirements?
So part of the challenge with the existing law is that it's very difficult to determine which businesses are covered because there are thresholds in the law around square footage, around the number of patrons a business serves, around the number of rooms in a hotel, and our enforcement officers may not have access to that specific information at the time they're doing an inspection or as they're going by a building or a business. So, we think that with the rollout of commercial waste zones and the fact that commercial waste zones requires carters to offer composting at or below the cost of refuse collection, that this is the perfect time to expand that requirement to all food-related businesses, make enforcement much more straightforward, and also make it so much easier to communicate with businesses about what they're required to do.
Given that, approximately how many businesses does the department expect will fall into the new definition of covered establishment? Do you think it's then everyone?
Yeah, it will be every food-related business. So every business that makes or sells food will be covered because there is just inherently some amount of waste that comes along with that. So think about delis, bodegas, restaurants, grocery stores, food manufacturers of all sizes would all be covered, but they will all receive their compost collection at or below the cost of their trash collection.
What enforcement issues, if any, does the department foresee when considering the impact of this bill?
I really don't see enforcement challenges. I think the fact that it will roll out as commercial waste zones is rolling out across the city makes the outreach and education component much easier, because we'll already be talking to every business in the zones as they roll out multiple times. We will have to go back to those zones that have already rolled out. We know that right now the adoption of organics collection is quite low, less than 3%. Among businesses that have signed up for a hauler in one of the existing 6 commercial waste zones. So there's a lot more work to do there, but we're certainly happy to go back to those zones and do more outreach and education.
Thank you. Let's switch gears and speak about Gennaro's bill, Intro 736. How many street activity permits has SAPO passed in the last 3 fiscal years, if you know?
I don't have that number.
Then I would also imagine you don't know if SAPO has the staffing needed to comply with this.
We can't speak for them, but we know that the administration does support this bill.
Is sanitation responsible for waste removal from street activities, or do those responsibilities fall to private carters?
It's either. Private events can either pay for sanitation services, where we will, and our practice today and going forward is that we send trucks for refuse, paper, metal, glass, plastic, and organics collection. So we send 2 dual bin trucks to collect 4 streams, or they can pay for a private carter to haul the material.
Are the city's composting facilities capable of processing plastics marked as compostable? If so, how are these materials dealt with? If not, have such plastics in the waste stream caused any issues for our municipal composting facilities?
I wouldn't say that they've caused issues. I will say that the screens that separate out non-compostable plastics from the compost also do separate out compostable plastics from the compost. A screen just determines how big something is and can't tell what kind of material it's made out of. That said, if a compostable material does make it through the initial screening process and through the composting process, it is much more likely to break down into the actual compost than a traditional plastic, which then gets screened out again at the end of the process. So it's more likely that they actually get composted, but generally they probably are not.
Okay, moving on to my bill, Intro 883, about the sidewalk cafe sanitation within the department. How many sanitation violations has the department issued to sidewalk and roadway cafes in the last year?
So we don't actually have a separate violation code for sidewalk and roadway cafes, so that would just be in dirty area or dirty sidewalk.
Okay. And how do roadway cafes impact the department's trash collection service or street sweeping operations?
I would say during the pandemic, when we had the pandemic era program, which had much broader adoption, there was a greater impact. Right now, I think the Department of Transportation has done a really good job of thinking through the siting requirements and the regulations around where these things should be and how they should be set up and maintained. And so the impact on our operations is relatively minimal.
Thank you. And we cannot talk about street cleanliness without talking about our highways. Thank you, Robert Moses. Over each of the last several fiscal years, the department's highway unit has increased the number of highway miles cleaned. Can you please describe these expanded operations? Which highways have been impacted by the expansion? And are there any areas that have not been previously covered by the unit? Or is the increase due to repeated cleanings in the same area?
I think largely the increase is due to repeated cleanings in the same area, in part because as we have been able to clean highways, then we're sort of starting from a better place and we can move faster. We're also just learning as we go. When we first started this effort back in early 2023, it was something that we had never done before, and we were, I think, rightfully so, very, very, very cautious about putting our crews on highways and the amount of supervision and safety and additional stuff that we needed to be able to feel comfortable doing that. Now we have, this is routine business for us, so we know how to set up a safe work area very quickly. We know how to operate within the safe work area, and we're able to cover more ground more quickly.
Since the department officially took over highway cleaning in 2023, how often has the department had to call on DOT for its equipment or personnel to complete highway cleaning?
Yeah, I will note that our highway cleaning service is a supplemental service. The primary responsibility for cleaning and maintenance of highways still rests with New York City DOT, and they do still do that. We are predominantly out there cleaning litter and other trash, whereas they will send crews that do sort of a more comprehensive maintenance of the highways all at the same time. They might fix some signage, they might fix a guardrail while they're also cleaning. So our crews are dedicated to just cleaning the highways. As this program has grown and matured, we have accumulated our own fleet of highway-specific equipment, so we are less reliant on DOT equipment, things like attenuators and heavy-duty mechanical brooms than we have been in the past.
From the actions thus far since 2023, does the department have any insight as to would it be cleaner if the Department of Sanitation had sole control of cleanliness of the highways as opposed to the dual licensure, if you will?
Yeah, I think the highways today are much cleaner than they were 3 years ago. I think we're in a very good spot on highway cleanliness, and this shared responsibility, I think, works where DOT is doing more general maintenance. We're specifically cleaning the trash and litter. We know what we're good at, which is trash and litter. They're good at infrastructure maintenance and sort of more general upkeep, and we know how to split that between the two agencies.
Great. And what highways were cleaned most frequently over the last 12 months? And is there a procedure or process that you use to decide which highways to clean?
We have them all on a rotating schedule, and we're out there every day of the week. Some locations, if we have to do lane closures or things like that, we try to go in at times where it won't impact traffic as much. But we're out there cleaning every highway on a regular basis.
And how do highway cleaning operations shift across seasons? Does snowfall impact these operations?
It absolutely does, both in terms of our resource availability, if we have to divert cleaning crews to snow removal, as well as just our ability to access parts of the highway. If there are piles of snow on the side, we can't necessarily get to the litter. I think the best time for us to clean is sort of March through the beginning of May, before the grass starts to really grow. We can get in there. We can really get the litter that's underneath all of the roadside plants and landscaping.
And last but not least, are there any questions that I have not asked over these last 3 hours that I should have asked?
I think it's been pretty comprehensive.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And to all of my colleagues that have still joined us here today, I appreciate you spending time with me. Thank you. And now I want to make sure I say the words right. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then when we come back, we will begin with in-person testimony from members of the public. Stay tuned.
If everyone can just please find their seat, we're getting ready to begin shortly. Thank you.
We will be restarting. Can I first bring up just the Justins and oh. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography or music, singing is allowed from the witness table or Zoom. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit such transcripts of your recordings to the Sergeant Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you'll have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topics, street cleanliness in New York City, or any of the legislation on our agenda today. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. I will now call the first panel. I have called the Justins, and can I also get Ryan from Sure We Can? Justin 1, whoever you decide that is, you may begin.
Hi, Chair. Thanks so much for having us and for this hearing today. I'm here to testify in support of Intro 031 and greater participation of commercial composting. We all know composting is a way to reduce methane emissions from landfills and a key impact on New York City's ability to reduce our climate impact. I also want to thank City Council for continuing its essential funding for community composting work through Schedule C initiatives for community composting. Funds 13 groups across the city doing amazing work, from Red Hook Farms, East New York Farms, Big Reuse, BK Rot, Brotherhood Sister Soul, and the Botanical Gardens, and doing essential composting education that the Department of Sanitation is not currently able to do. I also want to support Intro 0899 for construction and demolition waste plans and reporting. It's a great start for addressing the C&D waste crisis in New York. C&D waste accounts for 60% of the waste stream in New York City, and there are very little requirements for it to be monitored or even prove where it's going. This bill starts along the path. There are a lot more steps it could take for adding recycling and reuse and prioritizing those waste diversion pathways for C&D waste. It helps address reducing C&D waste. It helps reduce our landfilling, which two of the main landfills in New York State are starting to reduce their C&D waste that they accept and will eventually eliminate it. So having alternate pathways for construction demolition waste is essential to reducing our climate impact and that waste stream. Thanks so much for allowing me to testify.
Thank you so much. Now we'll pass it over to Ryan.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Ryan Castalia. I'm Executive Director of Sure We Can, a Brooklyn-based redemption center and nonprofit serving independent recyclers, the folks who collect and redeem the bottles and cans that other people just throw away. New York City's waste situation is extremely complex and knotted, with many stakeholders, many systems striving to do their part in managing the incomparable amount of waste that we generate. We're fortunate to have something like the bottle bill, the state's most effective recycling system in terms of outcomes, that drastically and elegantly reduces street litter by around 70%, while also driving environmental justice. Every New Yorker relies on this system, whether they're aware of it or not, yet the workers who drive its success and even the system itself are sidelined and neglected, often as an afterthought. This is despite the program's proven track record of success and the even more significant benefits investment, modernization, and expansion could bring, including saving the city around $80 million a year during a time of critically tight budgets. Commissioner Anderson pointed out just now that successful waste management, for example, mitigating overflowing litter baskets, means the whole community pitching in. And there's a workforce of thousands who are being held back from fulfilling their pitching in potential right now. The bottle bill works, period. It's demonstrated its efficacy for decades. It's the most effective recycling system we have. It's reduced street litter by over 70%. 80% of the material that it captures is actually turned into new containers, which is just a drastic difference in efficacy from our curbside recycling contractors' actual rate, which is under 20%. It supports small businesses, drives a circular economy, and it's even become a mechanism for environmental justice, creating low barrier ways for marginalized people of all backgrounds to become independent recyclers who contribute to our communities and earn a livelihood. These workers deserve a voice as stakeholders in the processes that rule their work. If they're denied that voice, it's to all of our detriment. For example, the issue of containerized waste is top of mind for many in the city, and plans for citywide containerization are well underway. But if this effort were to result in bottles and cans trapped in locked containers where canners are unable to access them, this would not only harm the livelihoods of some of our most vulnerable New Yorkers, but also make those materials drastically less likely to be constructively recycled.
Thank you for your testimony. The rest of the written testimony could be submitted, and we will have it on the record. Thank you. And just number 2.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Chair and members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify. Justin Wood, Director of Policy at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, and I'm also representing the Transform Don't Trash New York City Coalition. First and foremost, we want to testify strongly in support of Intro 31, which would increase the number of food waste generating businesses that are required to recycle organic waste. I want to skip right to for all the reasons stated, we support that. I want to skip right to a suggested amendment, which is that food donation and food rescue be incorporated into this bill as the highest and best use of edible food, far too much of which ends up in disposal from businesses ranging from grocery stores to caterers to restaurants. Currently, if we go back to DSNY's 2018 implementation plan for commercial waste zones, there was actually a very robust vision for having food rescue organizations scale up, get the funding they need, partner with the waste haulers and DSNY to make sure all food waste generating businesses have an easy and accessible food rescue option. And of course, we have far too many New Yorkers who are food insecure and hungry right now. So this is just the simplest win-win to address hunger and fight climate change and reduce disposal costs at the same time. Secondly, given that upping this commercial composting and organics recycling capacity requires additional compost capacity, we think now is the time for the council and DSNY to begin planning for additional commercial scale composting facilities as opposed to anaerobic co-digestion facilities. Composting is just a far environmentally preferable way to do this. We strongly supported in the last session Councilmember Nurse's bill. It was then Intro 696 in 2024. We would urge the council to take that legislation up again. If we have those kind of composting facilities available to businesses and DSNY in each borough, we can also reduce VMT, vehicle miles traveled to landfills, incinerators, and create hundreds of good, green, sustainable jobs. Finally, I'll just say we'll submit written testimony in support of Councilmember Gennaro's bill, Intro 736, which would expand the Skip the Stuff bill, and is just a common sense expansion of the amount of waste diverted. Thank you.
As always, thank you so much for your testimony, Justin. Appreciate it. And with that, the first panel is concluded. And the second panel, I'll bring up Juan number 1 and Wendy number 1. Do we still have Juan with us? Number Juan? No.
Thank you, Committee Chair Sanchez. My name is Juan Zarate, and I'm a lifelong Brooklyn resident. I live in Bushwick, CB4. I'm not here representing the board in any way. I'm here as a resident of the city who cares about the city. And I came to support Bill Intro 857 by Speaker Menon and Intro 872 by Councilmember Hanif. I believe in the power of education, and I think access to resources is often neglected when we have conversations related to sanitation and cleanliness. And I believe that we should focus on the public health implications that these legislations have over our city. This is a matter of public health. I recently completed New York City Trash Academy, and I'd love to see the effects of programs such as things done by the Sanitation Foundation expanded to other New Yorkers so that they can learn how to access these resources for free and have these things as accessible as possible, be it the language, be it the way these materials are shown to them, which can be complex and complicated. We've seen the effects of what disruption looks like through the pandemic, and I didn't come here to blame anyone who's a dog owner. I believe that we face a very lonely time, and I completely empathize with the fact that they want someone or something in their life to keep them company. But the demand for pets hasn't kept up with the need to create more education and more opportunities to give people resources such as bags. You can read the rest of my testimony offline, but please work with us as constituents of the city to make this city better. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to really thank you for taking the time to come here and actually testify about tree cleanliness, about what you're doing, and to encourage and continue to do that and have your neighbors do it. That's what it really takes, especially for us that come from the outer boroughs that don't get as much attention to the things that we see. And so I see you, I appreciate you, and thank you for staying for this whole hearing to testify on behalf of the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ready to close this out, Wendy?
Showtime. My name is Wendy Frank, and I'm a member of the Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board. My testimony represents the opinions of the Manhattan SWAB Chair Matt Savillo and Brooklyn SWAB Chair Mary Ellen Sullivan, and myself, regarding the introduction of Intro 736 by Councilmember Gennaro and Councilmember Epstein in the New York City Council. While we all members of our borough solid waste advisory boards, our opinions and testimony are our own. From open data, we estimated between December 2025 to 2026, there were over 36,000 permits issued for parades, block parties, street fairs, flea markets, and other special events. As the song goes, I love a parade. The city, which is the most diverse places in the world, creates a space where people from different backgrounds and communities can celebrate and connect and learn from each other. We appreciate that. As citizens who care about reducing and properly disposing of waste, we see our street fairs and other similar events as a valuable and fun way to educate and encourage New Yorkers as visitors on how to properly and easily dispose of recycling, organics, and waste. At New York City street fairs and open streets events where food, drink, and other fun items are sold, there is only one type of receptacle for people's waste: trash bins lined with black bags. For black bags picked up by the DSNY or contracted carters, the contents will end up in landfill or incinerations. Additionally, there are 127 distinctly designated open streets locations that also hold small events throughout the summer. We think the street fairs and open streets generate a large amount of waste and typically do not recycle. Information about the volume of trash is not available to us at this time, and I attended the 9th Avenue Street Festival last weekend and witnessed deep fried Oreos, oversized turkey legs on steroids, and corn husks with no place to go but black garbage bags. Can I read the rest?
Yes, you can finish your testimony.
It's the last and best. To estimate the impact of legislation, we can leverage the Street Activity Permit Office to research the number or duration of street fairs. Events from open streets should also be added to this calculation. Using this data, the city could conduct waste audits of representation at street fairs, open street events. Waste audit data would enable the city to estimate the amount of waste and recycling and organics typically thrown away, and the data would be also create a baseline for the amount of types of waste impacted. After this legislation is passed and implemented, the baseline would enable the city to understand how good a job event attendees are doing of disposing their waste in appropriate bins. If the diversion rate is not improving, the city could tweak its approach to improve outcomes. Because each street fair is unique, attendees may need help being directed to the right bins so they can dispose of their waste correctly to make it easier and to minimize contamination. All 3 waste bins could be located. Recycling, organics, and trash. Organics bins could be restricted to areas near food stalls. However, trash and recycling bins could be co-located throughout the fairs.
Thank you so much. I'm going to have to ask
Okay,
the
but
rest.
one
be
last
added.
sentence is we just had the 5-borough bike tour. There was 1 billion bananas given out. There was no recycling. And Justin, in the past, has worked with that organization, and it's bananas that we don't compost bananas, where over 32,000 people attend that event.
I completely agree. It is bananas. And I think it's also bananas that we did not have a representative from SAPO here, given all the SAPO questions that we had. But maybe for next time. Thank you all so much. And you are dismissed. Are there any other folks for... Oh. We have a Zoom panel, so we are on a hold, and we will now turn this over to Zoom. Who do we have on Zoom? If we could have Danielle, number 1 from Zoom, please.
Starting time.
Danielle going once. Danielle going twice. Thank you, Danielle. Do we have any other folks that would like to be heard today? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, that is all from the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management, today's hearing. Thank you, everyone.